Hello everyone and welcome. In today's mod spotlight, we will be using the Ultimate Chaos mod to have a royal rumble between all four of the Chaos Gods. NURGLE KHORNE will be teaming up to take down the forces of SLANEESH and TZEENTCH in the Chaos Wastes, because they too are looking for entertainment until Total War Warhammer 2 comes out. Before we begin, I'd like to give a big thanks to Italian Spartacus, Indie Pride of Milk and Cookies Total War, and the Gobble King for partaking. Also, if you're interested in the mod, there will be a link in the description below. And now let the games begin. And now we're here with the final showdown between all four of the Chaos Gods. On this side of the battlefield, I'm going to be leading the forces of NURGLE, and for my lord, I do have the Great Unclean One. I'm going to be joined by Italian Spartacus on my team, who is going to be leading the Khorne army, and for his lord, he does have, I believe, a Chaos Lord of Khorne, which is a Great Axe Infantry. They also do have a very, very heavy anti-infantry bonus, so that's kind of a recurring theme across the Khorne units, and he does also have Kill, Maim, Burn. So if you guys take a look at this, it gives him 50% weapon damage at a big charge bonus as well as melee attack, so he can definitely, punish some guys one-on-one. On top of that, he does also have a Lieutenant, the Bloodthirster of Khorne, and in this mod there's actually several variations of the Greater Demon, so you can get the Bloodthirster of Khorne or the Exalted Bloodthirster of Khorne, which is like covered with armor, a little bit more durable, and has some higher stats. We're going to be facing off against the Gobbo King. So the Gobbo King is going to be leading the forces of TZEENTCH. He does have the Exalted Lord of Change, which is kind of the upgraded, juiced version. Definitely looks like a giant parakeet. Pretty cool. But basically kind of the thing with the Exalted Lord of Change, or Lords of Change in general in this mod, is they have a bunch of different spells from different Lords of Magic. So you can see here, let's go ahead and zoom in just so we can get a look at those spells. He does have the TZEENTCH's Firestorm, he has his Sorcerous Bolts, Demonic Channeling, which pretty much makes their Winds of Magic regeneration be like 1 per 2. Like they get like 1 Winds of Magic every like 2 seconds. It's pretty powerful. Arcane Conduit to make that even more progressive over the course of the battle. Enfeebling Foe, he has Harmonic Convergence, and on top of that he also has the Bolts of Change, just a bunch of like new spells that have been added in this mod. Definitely some very, very cool stuff from the mod creator. And he's going to be joined on his team by the forces of SLANEESH, who are going to be led by Indie Pride of Milk and Cookies Total War. And for his lord, he actually does have the Mighty Prince Sigvald. So Sigvald in this mod is an absolute monster. He can be put on a mount, so you guys can see here he's on this SLANEESH steed. And let's actually pause for another second here. My apologies, guys. And go ahead and check out some of the abilities. So he does have the Ignore Pain. So Sigvald, on top of, I think he has Perpetual Regeneration from like the inbuilt Auric armor, but he also does have Ignore Pain, so he can essentially heal. It does make him a little bit weaker to fire, but nonetheless he has a self-healing ability. He does also have Delightful Pain, which is an augmentation. It lasts for 43 seconds. It gives him melee attack, melee defense, applies poison. And then he also has some auras. So Rapturous Pleasures gives weapon strength to all nearby troops. So it definitely makes Sigvald a force to be reckoned with in this mod. So guys, before we get rolling, let's take a look at some of the more noteworthy units from each of the gods. And guys, we can go from there. So for the forces of NURGLE, I have some warriors of NURGLE over here, which are pretty much just kind of the rank and file of NURGLE. Still very powerful, and the recurring theme across the NURGLE troops is durability. So you have physical resist, you have very high HP, you can see these guys have 15, and these are my elite units over here. These are the Plague Reapers of NURGLE. So look how cool the texturing is on these guys. They look awesome. But they have Swarm of Flies, which is pretty neat, so very similar to like the Demon Spew Regiment of Renown. They have a physical resist of 15%, anti-large, which is nice, of 15, and they do have poison as well. So these guys are just monsters. They do very, very well with that poison. For my lord, I do have the Great Unclean One. So the Great Unclean One is obviously a greater demon, very powerful combatant, 8,000 HP, but he has a ton of abilities. So he's immune to Vigor. He does have a ward save of 20% against all damage, which is pretty much all the demons in this mod do. They crumble instead of retreating, which makes sense. And he also does have Nurgle's Rot. And let's see where the spells are. So yeah, Tides of Corruption is an AoE cone attack. He has Rot, Glorious Rot, which basically you put him in the middle of the opponent's army, you pop this, and he just shoots this like this rot everywhere, and all nearby troops basically just start rotting away. It does pretty massive damage. On top of that, he has Fleshy Abundance, which is a healing ability, more kind of cone abilities, and just all kinds of neat stuff. So definitely a very, very fun unit. Probably one of the strongest units in the mod, in my opinion. So for Italian Spartacus over here, he has the elite units of Khorne. These are the Skull Takers of Khorne. Probably one of the best head-to-head infantry in this mod. They do have a 62 weapon strength with an anti-infantry bonus of 20. So when they're fighting enemy infantry, they will cut them to shreds. Where they struggle a little bit is getting like rode down by cav and different things like that. And they do kind of, they do okay against large units, but they do have very low melee defense, so they can definitely take some work. And they're very slow. So on top of that, in the front line, he does have some Bloodletters of Khorne. So these are the Demons of Khorne. These guys are great. 65 weapon strength with an anti-infantry bonus of 15. They're not going to crumble, and they do have that ward save of 20. Well, they are going to crumble, but they're not going to retreat is what I meant. And they do have that ward save of 20% that all demons have, and they have the Endless Frenzy. So this is also something that's very common across the Khorne troops in this mod, is they have Endless Frenzy. So they're pretty much perpetually in frenzy. They're not going to wear off when their leadership gets to a certain point. So yeah, some Followers of Slaughter, which are like Cultists of Khorne. These guys are pretty neat. And yeah, that's pretty much it, kind of across the line. Over here on the far side, we do have a little bit of a cav contingent. So we got some Knights of Khorne over here who are going to be joined by the Swords of Chaos. So there actually are the Regiments of Renown in this mod. And you can see them leading the Knights of Khorne, which is very cool thematic. You can see my Cultists over here, the Plague Cannon Battery. So that was also something that was added in this mod. You can actually play with cannon batteries, so you can get like a battery of hell cannons, where it's like 8 hell cannons lined up, just firing as one unit. It's definitely a cool inclusion. You can see these plague cannons are shooting in and poisoning these forces of SLANEESH. So for Indy Pride, he has the Riders of SLANEESH over here, which are an anti-large kind of... These guys are probably the best cav unit in the mod for their cost. They have anti-large melee attacks with 34 weapon strength, so they can do very well in melee. They have, okay armor and silver shields, and they also have a, skirmishing ability, so they can throw spears, and they're very useful for taking down the greater demons. On top of that, he does have some, standard Warriors of SLANEESH over here, which are just the rank and file, and kind of the thing with SLANEESH troops is they have like decent, well-rounded stats. But more importantly, these guys, the SLANEESH is blessed on the back line. These are the elites, so they're very similar to the Skull Takers or the Plague Reapers of NURGLE. These guys have 66 weapon strength, pretty much impervious leadership, good armor, but they also have this intoxicating aura, so they lower the speed of every nearby opponent by like 15%, which is not bad at all. He has the Demonettes of SLANEESH over here on the far side, and these guys are also quite a force to be reckoned with. You can see they're retextured, it looks like, from War Dancers. They do have the intoxicating aura, immunity to vigor, so they never get tired, and they also do have that same demon ward save, which is pretty neat. So now let's go ahead and look at the forces of TZEENTCH over here. So TZEENTCH has the pink cores of TZEENTCH in the back, so these guys are pretty cool. And it looks like he did some new texturing since the last time we saw them. But these guys kind of shoot these flame attacks. They're a missile unit, and they hit hard. I mean, they have 205 weapon damage with their missile attacks. They have flame attacks and magic. So against certain units, they're going to do a little bit of extra damage, which is quite neat. And I do think some of the NURGLE units do have weakness to fire, so these guys are going to be a little bit scary. On top of that, these are the elite units of TZEENTCH, and man, they look really cool as well. These are the Bringers of Change. So they have an anti-large bonus, fire and magic damage. So these guys really shine against NURGLE, because the NURGLE units are, one of the ways they compensate for a lack of stats is with that physical resist. And these guys do the magic damage and fire damage, so they're going to be very strong. And on top of that, they also do have this this ward save of 25%, so definitely going to be scary dealing with these guys. So guys, that's most of the units. You guys saw the Exalted Lord of Change earlier, so without further ado, let's get this battle rolling. My apologies for the long-winded introduction. There's just so much to share here. So you can see the TZEENTCH Sorcerer in the front line. Looks like he was casting some arcane bolts at my troops, but he is going to kind of get charged by some of these Warriors of NURGLE here, which is going to be a little bit rough. But basically, both of the armies are just advancing. You can see on the far side, Italian Spartacus is sending these Knights of Khorne to engage against these Knights of SLANEESH, but he is a little bit outnumbered, so that's going to be a little bit tough. The forces of Indy Pride are advancing, and you can see these cultists have engaged, and the Skull Takers of Khorne are going to be pushing back here while my plague cannons continue to fire at those Warriors of SLANEESH. So the battle's underway. In the distance, you can see the Great Unclean One is going to be advancing on the forces, and the Exalted Lord of Change in here is getting ready to party. And some of these Skull Takers of Khorne are just going to start massacring some of these SLANEESH warriors, because the standard SLANEESH warriors aren't bad, but these guys are literally like the creme de la creme of infantry, and they're just kind of going to cut these guys up to pieces. Granted, Indy Pride has this massive cav force, and he also does have more troop density, so he's going to be able to probably overwhelm this flank very effectively. You can see Sigvald, instead of allocating his forces in the middle, he's going up and around the side, and he's probably going to pressure that plague cannon. So very well played by everyone over there. You can also see this Bloodthirster of Khorne is just going to march through these troops, so he can just charge through those guys, and he just bowls those guys over. He's just going in with a massive hard-on on this greater demon. So, Italian Spartacus and I were talking, we're like, oh, look at that. They actually like tackled. That was like a football tackle. But we were talking, we're like, we need to shut down that Big Bird, because if Big Bird sits and just has his way, it's going to be rough. Over here you can see my champion of NURGLE. It's going after these pink horrors of TZEENTCH, and in the front line, my Great Unclean One and my Plague Reapers of NURGLE are fighting, and I also do have the Plague Bearers of NURGLE. So these guys are the demons of NURGLE. They're very durable. They don't have the most DPS, but they're incredibly tough to kill. They have good regeneration and everything. Up here you can see my Great Unclean One is definitely looking a little bit angry, and he has some pretty wild attacks for sure, because you guys have seen the way Chaos Spawn attacks, so he has like a very similar type thing. So I think I was actually pathing him towards the back right now, but yeah, you can see the Warriors of TZEENTCH have engaged with some of the Warriors of NURGLE, who actually have broken here on the far side, so very tough stuff. Nonetheless, the Greater Demon, or the Bloodthirster, is just chasing down that Exalted Lord of Change, and you can see the pink horrors of TZEENTCH are just roasting this guy. He's actually taking a ton of damage. So very, very well played by the Goblin King and Italian Spartacus. He was kind of covering me here, because this would have been very helpful on his side of the battlefield, but we kind of agreed that this thing needed to be dealt with. So in the back, you can see the Bringers of Change are fighting against the Champion of NURGLE, and the Champion of NURGLE has some pretty good stats, and he also, I think, has like an AoE blast, so he comes down with that scythe and just cleaves a few of those Bringers of Change. I also did get some of my hounds in the back line, so my Chaos Poison Warhounds have jumped these pink horrors of TZEENTCH, and you can also see that Bloodthirster still chasing that guy down. My Plague Reapers and Knights of NURGLE did get a pretty decent little charge here, and I have kind of sandwiched some of these Knights of TZEENTCH, and you can also see the Great Unclean One just kind of beating down these guys and just shredding these Warriors of TZEENTCH. So definitely a very, very pitched fight on both sides of the battlefield. So for the forces of Khorne, you can see here that these Warriors of Khorne are doing pretty well. I mean, they're definitely specialists in infantry, and they're going to be able to win a lot of the infantry battles, but they do kind of lack in other areas, and they are very susceptible to shock damage. That's definitely one of the problems with Khorne in this mod. Over here, though, you can see it looks like the Warriors of Khorne are indeed retreating from the Slaaneesh forces. So the Slaaneesh's Blessed are a very, very strong unit. They're obviously going to outclass a lot of the, low-tier Khorne infantry, and you can see that guy just got crushed right there. But more importantly, the Cav fight was so heavily won by the Knights of Slaaneesh. Indy Pride's forces here are advancing with Sigvald in very good health, and they're just collapsing. And you can see these Bloodletters in here in the pits. They're just completely surrounded. They're just sandwiched. And there is a lot of anti-large in here as well. And these Bloodthirsters are just going to start crumbling and are going to go down incredibly quick. Looks like there was some sort of a spell cast there. Going to be some rough stuff. And our Plague Cannon over here, our battery has been taken down. We figured we might be able to defend it with, Italian Spartacus, his Knights of Khorne, and those different units like that. But man, they just got rode down by the Cav of Slaanesh. Over here you can see the Slaanesh Sorcerers also finishing off some of these followers of Slaughter. So right now the battle's pretty pitched. You can see some of these pink cores over here just shooting into the blob. This Bloodthirster is still on the hunt. So Big Bird right here, this Bringer of Change, is very quick. He's doing a pretty good job of kind of scurrying away from this Bloodthirster, but nonetheless, this guy's probably eventually going to get him. You can see the forces of TZEENTCH right here are starting to crumble. The NURGLE infantry are very durable. The Plague Reapers and the Great Unclean One, and these Plague Reapers over here have pretty much one infantry core. The main fight of the main core of the TZEENTCH forces are a little bit worn down. He still does have some cav riding around. His lord is in a lot of trouble. The pink cores in the back, though, are still in line. And I think I did get some truth back here finally. Yeah, the Knights of NURGLE. Granted, they are fighting Bringers of Change who do have anti-large, so that's a pretty rough little engagement for me. But nonetheless, the forces of Slaanesh are kind of unifying, just kind of cleaning up the scraps. You can see Italian Spartacus does have some Knights of Khorne rerouting here, and he also has some Skull Takers and other troops here that he might be able to rally. Balance of power is still pretty even. It's probably slightly favoring TZEENTCH and Slaanesh. However, it's definitely a very, very close fight nonetheless. And you can see these Bloodletters of Khorne in here, like even though they're crumbling, just fighting till the bitter end, and they're just such a strong unit. I think some of the demons in this mod are definitely some of the more viable picks here. Granted, they do suffer from that leadership issue, and one of the weaknesses of them is that they do crumble if they get like collapsed. So they're not really going to rally. They're just going to disappear. And you can see right now they're crumbling with negative 28 leadership. So something to take into account here, which is pretty neat. So over here on the far side, you can see kind of an overarching look of things over here. The Plague Reapers and these Plague Bearers of NURGLE in the middle have done pretty well for themselves. These Warriors of NURGLE here are doing pretty good. Granted, they have been engaged on by the Demon Knights of Slaanesh. And you can see right now I'm casting Rot, Glorious Rot. So I like position right in the center of all these troops. And then you can see that aura. So it does a ton of damage. You can see the Slaanesh's Blessed just got ticked for 200 HP. It's quite massive. And Italian Spartacus has reinforced me with some Skull Takers of Khorne. So that's going to be pretty nice right here. But the Plague Reapers are in a pretty hard fight for sure against these guys. But honestly, the NURGLE infantry against Slaanesh do pretty well because Slaanesh doesn't do magic damage with their attacks. So the physical resist you're going to get from those Plague Reapers is going to be incredibly strong. So very, very, very wild fight here for sure. And let's go ahead and see how many I got left. Yeah, 60 Warriors of NURGLE, 41 Plague Reapers, definitely in some pretty good shape. In the back, though, you can see Big Bird is getting hunted, and Indy Pride has come to help the Gobbo King. He brought these Riders of Slaanesh, and I do use my NURGLE Cone right here. So I did that blast, and it hit a ton of these guys. Did some massive damage, so you can see these Riders of Slaanesh are really getting gunned down. But this Bloodthirster of Khorne is definitely pretty angry here, and he wants his blood. So he's coming. He's probably going to get one or two more auto attacks. He should be able to finish Big Bird. It looks like a little bit of friendly fire from those pink cores, but yeah, I don't see Big Bird getting away from this demon. Oh, he just gets cleaved. So the Exalted Lord of Change does indeed go down to the Bloodthirster of Khorne. So that was definitely a big, nice turning of the tide in the battle. And the Great Unclean One here is in pretty good shape, and you can see he's just leaving these these pink cores right here, doing some very, very good damage. However, there is a massive force right here led by Prince Sigvald the Magnificent. So Prince Sigvald, Italian Spartacus went in with his Bloodthirster, definitely a little bit hot and heavy right here, trying to get on this guy and do some good DPS, but Sigvald is incredibly durable. He has popped the Ignore Pain, which is going to make him a little bit more tanky. It does make him vulnerable to fire damage, but the Bloodthirster of Khorne, Italian Spartacus just imbued himself with fire damage right as he popped that, so very, very well played. However, I do think that the Bloodthirster of Khorne is a little bit low to kind of take Prince Sigvald with all of these supporting units right here. So there's still a pocket of NURGLE troops right here who are fighting, and they're just trying to fend off these Slaanesh forces, and it's a pretty even fight, but I think this Cav force is just going to be incredibly overwhelming. You can see the Gobbo King has also done a very, very good job getting these pink cores of TZEENTCH back online. They're starting to roast my Great Unclean One, who hasn't taken much damage. A lot of people wait till like the end game to target him because he just has such big healing that if you invest too much DPS in him, he's going to heal, and the other units of the NURGLE are essentially just going to thrive. But right here, I do have a champion of NURGLE and some other troops, but still just getting roasted pretty good over here. And the Slaanesh forces have pretty much just routed these troops on the top. So the Warriors of NURGLE are pretty much broken and shattered right now, as are these Plague Reapers. But there's really not much left on the battlefield if we look. You guys can see there's some Riders of Slaanesh over here just throwing, doing some good DPS. But yeah, this is a pretty healthy little firing line. You can see it's all going into here. And that big gaseous explosion you guys just saw is the pestilent explosion from the Great Unclean One. So you definitely don't want to blob up on this guy. One of the better ways to deal with him if you are playing this mod is just to kind of inundate him with 1 or 2 units and then kill his other stuff and then finish him off for last. Because he is a demon, so he is susceptible to crumbling as well. And army losses and all that kind of stuff. So The champion of Nurgle, I was pulling away. I wanted to try and go hunt down this this TZEENTCH sorcerer, because TZEENTCH sorcerers are very strong. They have some strong abilities. So I wanted to send this champion to go finish him off. But you can see the Gobbo King is trying to intercept me with these warriors of TZEENTCH right here. And up on the high ground, yeah, you can see the forces of Sigvald are rallying here. That Bloodthirster did some pretty good damage, but it looks like he is going to be coming in. And a lot of my Nurgle troops, the Plague Reapers, though they're extremely durable, they are taking this perpetual fire from the Pink Horrors. And the Pink Horrors do magic damage, so they're able to get around that kind of physical resist of these guys. So definitely some good counterplay right there. But the Greater Demon's in good shape, but the balance of power is really starting to shift. Italian Spartacus and I only have 117 troops left. We're facing off against about 360, give or take, so quite a bit. And you can see Sigvald and all these guys are going to be surrounding this Great Unclean One. You can see these Riders of Slaanesh, and I wonder what that aura is. I think it's like a fear aura or something, but everything is pretty much exhausted right here, but they're still confident, which is definitely not good. But, you know, the Great Unclean One is really, really difficult to kill. You can see it's finally starting to take some HP damage, and Slaanesh probably has some of the best tools to take him out, because Slaanesh magic has abilities that give buffs, but they also just take away massive ward saves. So you can see Indie Pride right here does use the Delirious Excruciation as well as the Enrapturing Spasms, which lowers his melee attack, his melee defense. It gives him negative 30% to his ward save with that Delirious Excruciation. It's just a massive defensive debuff. And the Great Unclean One, you can see he's still cleaving through these knights, but he's taking fire from the Pink Horrors. Prince Sigvald has all of his buffs popped, so he's just doing massive damage. And the Great Unclean One, like I mentioned, is a demon, so if you can get his leadership pretty low, I mean, you guys can see right now he's critical binding, but yeah, he'll start to crumble, and you know, it does a lot of damage to him. But that big AoE blast is just punishing a lot of the Slaanesh infantry, and some of these cav are very tattered, down to 11 models. But that's pretty much all we have. There's some warriors of TZEENTCH over here, and also that TZEENTCH sorcerer is coming back, and they get really, really good wins in magic regeneration, so they would probably most likely be able to just kind of nuke him down. So the Great Unclean One is surrounded, definitely going to be our last bastion here, and it is indeed going to die. I did one last kind of blast here to send some of these Slaanesh troops back to the warp, but you know what? It's not going to be enough. So super well played to everyone. That was incredibly fun. So we had all four of the Chaos Gods represented. I was Nurgle, Italian Spartacus was Khorne, and we had the Gobbo King as TZEENTCH and Indie Pride as Slaanesh over here. So man, what a wild fight. But guys, if you haven't played the mod, it's called the Ultimate Chaos Mod. I'll have a link to it in the description below. You guys can see it. Go check it out. It's actually just kind of a disclaimer. It's not meant for multiplayer. This mod was designed for campaign play. Granted, there have been a lot of changes that have helped with multiplayer balance. The mod creators done a pretty outstanding job. But it kind of really shines in campaign. If you go into campaign, you can play the Warriors of Chaos, and you can play like a Khorne-specific army. You can do a Nurgle-specific army. You can get a Plague Lord of Nurgle. You can have your army led by a Great Unclean One and go attack Altdorf. There's a lot of really neat stuff you can do. So definitely check it out. It's quite a bit of fun. I've actually been doing a little campaign on the side, which is pretty neat. But thanks again to Italian Spartacus, the Gobbo King, and Indie Pride for joining. There will also be links to all of their respective YouTube channels in the description and comment section below. So yeah, go check them out. And guys, thanks again for watching. Let me know if you guys want to see some more Ultimate Chaos. And also, once Total War Warhammer 2 does come out, we're definitely going to be doing some free-for-all. We're going to do free-for-all with all the different Chaos Gods, which I think is going to be a little bit more thematic and maybe more lore-friendly. I'm not sure. But I think as far as I know that like Khorne doesn't like Slaanesh and TZEENTCH, and kind of Nurgle's in the same boat a little bit. I don't know. You guys will have to let me know in the comments below. But guys, thanks again for watching. Really appreciate your perpetual support. And guys, more content coming soon.